Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Who Moved My Career, where we talk about all the things that happen in our career, the pivots, the changes, the curveballs that are thrown at us, and what to do about any of it. I am super excited today to be joined by Rebecca and Drew. And it's funny because I don't know if anybody follows the Instagram, but if you have, you've seen that I have been spending a lot of time on our local news channel here in DC talking about the federal workforce fallout. And we have talked about it on pretty much every episode, the impact of what's happening in the federal government, how people are reacting to that. I spend a lot of time giving advice, but we actually haven't had anybody on the podcast who's from the federal government. So today that changes with Rebecca and Drew. They have such an amazing story. And I actually did talk about it before this last week on my local news station, because I think you guys are the model for how to deal with the biggest curveball ever, which is A, accept it, and then B, immediately turn it into action. And I think a lot of people get caught in I don't know what to do, I'm scared. And that's obviously really understandable. But like turning it into action is where the two of you have thrived. And what you are doing for laid off federal government workers is phenomenal. So I'm pumped to get into it. We're talking about Wellfed today, and let's do it. So Rebecca, Drew, lovely to see you both.
Thank you for having us. It's great to see you, Nicole.
Yeah, you too. It was funny, one of the things we talk about with people who are going through career transition is the importance of just being out there and meeting people, not necessarily for a new job, but just because awesome people should meet awesome people. And that is indeed how Rebecca and I met, through a friend who's on the board of my local community pool with me, and was like, hey, I think this would be an amazing conversation for your podcast. So I'm pumped that he did that. And I'm so glad to have you guys today. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with, I think it was early February of this year that you both received some crazy news. But Rebecca, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about what was going on, where you had been before that, and set the stage.
Yeah. So February 15th is when Drew and we served a team for an agency under HHS. And we both received notice that day that we had been terminated for poor performance. Of course, I think the world knows now through a lot of reporting, and I'm grateful for the integrity of that reporting, that it simply wasn't true. But prior to that day, we served on an employee engagement and experience team. And I'll let Drew talk a little bit about her role, but I'm a learning and development expert and change management professional. And so I had the great privilege of serving my agency in providing leaders and teams with the support they needed along professional development, learning soft and hard skills, and equipping them with tools and frameworks, and curating meetings and retreats that help them get to their mission, their vision, and how to get things done. So actually, our team was all about efficiency and all about effectiveness.
Oh, the irony.
Supporting our agency to be more innovative, to be more creative, and to get things done. Unfortunately,
I would say that I was about to say, Rebecca, you were so good at that. You are so good at that. It didn't end with the abrupt end to that chapter. It's just taken shape in a different way. But you bring all of that magic you've brought to Wellfed, and you bring to every interaction that you have. And I'm sure, Nicole, you can tell that we love each other very much.
Well, we're going to get into not only the fact that you guys worked together, but also that you kind of locked arms and started something really amazing. So Drew, you were both working at HHS when you got these emails. Did the email come at the same time? Did you call each other and say, did you check your email? What was that like?
You know what? We had been checking our emails constantly for a couple of days prior to when we received the news, because we had that kind of dread that comes with the purgatory of indecision. And I think because we knew something was coming, but we didn't know quite what, and we didn't know quite when. There was a lot of, sweaty hands refreshing buttons and just kind of sitting there like holding our breath. And we actually had spent that day together. You came here to my house, and we just spent time sitting with each other and saying, like, we're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. We're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. And then later on that night was when we got the news. So it was incredibly important in a moment that could feel very isolating, and I'll admit still did, because it is so hard to receive news that all of a sudden the job you loved is no longer the job you have for reasons outside of you. That was really hard. But we received the news. We were given the opportunity to hear it from our supervisor, which was helpful to know. But beyond that, it was like system shut down, everything was shut down, and we were left kind of wondering like what's next, and then figure that out really quickly for sure.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca, I think when you and I first talked, you mentioned something like there are 8 ways to be fired or let go or, be terminated, even just kind of in your immediate remit. And you think about, when I laid off my team, there was one way, there was one communication. Was it 100% perfect? Of course not. It
It
never
never
is.
is.
But
Right.
as close to perfect as you can get, it really was. And it was kind, it was
So
thoughtful. I joke, like I was still holding all hands call. I don't know why, but because I do know why, but
Because you cared.
because I
Because you
cared.
cared.
Yeah. But that reality of 8 different ways also just adds to that feeling, I think, that Drew, you're talking about, which is fear, not feeling seen, not feeling appreciated, like that's just a next level of chaos.
absolutely.
And these are folks who are really on the front lines,
Very much.
serving communities, right? Equipping communities with the resources that they need, with the grants, right? That they need to take care of children and families. It's really remarkable right now. I think 8 different ways that people feel forced to leave employment. And it's quite sweeping, it's quite broad, and it feels indiscriminate. Although, for our camp, right, which was terminated and probationary employees, we felt very targeted, right? We were the lowest hanging fruit at the time, it seemed. And so there was, I think, real value. And now we can see it, right?
Yeah.
We're far enough removed, not removed enough, but it's been a handful of months now.
Yeah.
And Drew and I have talked about this several times about we felt like it was a gift, actually, in retrospect, that we were the first. And I think a day after we received termination notice, of course, we were in touch with each other. We were calling each other and we were sharing tears. I can't remember who called who, but we got on the phone
Remember either.
a day later and we were like, okay, when are we going to do something?
Right.
Let's start planning something for our colleagues, because we know we have the skills and expertise and the knowledge and the network to put something
all of the
together where people can feel cared for and held in this time that feels so uncertain. And so we instantly got to work.
Well, I love that, because that saying that crisis is the mother of invention or whatever. I'm bastardizing it a little bit here.
That is,
But
and the keyword
you-
on mother for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But you were in your own state of grief, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you know it's coming. And in some ways it's worse. And in some ways, there is no good way to feel.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no good way to process it. And I think one of the things we're having a guest in a few weeks, we just did a recording, and he talks about you just have to start moving. You just have to put one foot in front of the other. And you did that. So tell me about Wellfed. Let's talk about how you started it, what the original idea was, and where you guys are now.
I think that that's so true. And when we were thinking about what we wanted to build and who we wanted to serve, we knew that the foundation of whatever we were going to do had to be rooted in wellness, similar to kind of the theory that we can't do our work well, we can't care for others, we can't care for ourselves unless we are well enough to do it. And we knew that people were being rocked by the news, and we knew that that came with feelings of isolation and fear and uncertainty, financial, emotional, psychological, every kind. And so we wanted to create a community and experiences for that community that would allow people to feel cared for. And we knew that it had to be more than just that, right? We knew that was the basis upon which we wanted to build what is now a social impact startup. But we knew that care was important. We knew that community was important. And we knew that career development was important. Because it's one thing to feel well, but when you feel like you were saying, with crisis or whatever it is being kind of the mother of invention, people want action. They're hungry for small steps that make a big difference. And sometimes getting out of bed is that big step of the day. And sometimes it's getting to a place where you feel like you can create a value proposition for yourself as you're applying for jobs completely outside of the industry that you felt so comfortable in and so kind of nestled by for so long. So we knew those are the things we wanted to do. We also are really creative people. I'm a professional fine artist outside of work. Rebecca is a pianist and her musicality is wild. So we love the idea of written word. We both read a lot of poetry, and I've always loved wordplay because I think it's just fabulous. And Rebecca appreciated it too. And so we came up with the name Wellfed, and it plays lots of roles, right? It's not meant to have just one meaning. Yes, it is related to the wellness of our federal community, which is our tired federal community as well as our fired Fed community. We're also a softer landing for folks who've gotten the news, and we're a soft kind of entry point for folks who are not so sure what that news is going to be. And because Rebecca is a Korean mother, I am a Jewish mother, we were like, we're going to have to feed our people. Like there's no, whether it's emotional feeding or physical feeding, wherever we are, and this is what we did, you know, in our jobs within the government, there was always an opportunity to convene people around food. Like that's what brings people together. It doesn't matter what culture you're coming from. It's true for all. So we really loved that the name Wellfed meant something bigger. It was yes and, which was really cool. So that was kind of what we built it on. And we had our branding figured out as we were having that conversation of like who we wanted to be. And having that felt like a very big, it gave it legs. You know, we were all of a sudden able to like get this thing stood up.
And Drew is really the brilliant mind behind all of our branding. So not just our name, but all of the branding that you see on our website and on LinkedIn. And I want to underscore here that, you know, when we pivoted to planning a gathering, we're like, we need to gather people. People are grieving, right? This is very difficult. There's so many unknowns and uncertainty in the future, and people are feeling like they're not in control of their lives. And so how can we give them a space, a safe space where they can connect? We also know that learning, right, is an important piece because they're going to have to make some really tough decisions about their future, and they don't have a lot of information to work with. So we wanted to provide that space. When Drew came up with, you know, Wellfed, we had one event in our mind. We had like one gathering in mind. And on the day of the event, you know, and there was a groundswell of support. People donated to sponsor people to cover our costs. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Drew's network, she had space and food donated. You know, NBC Washington showed up. And they wanted to tell our story. They wanted to highlight, you know, fired federal workers. We were some of the first. And from that, after that moment, and after seeing the impact of how people were feeling held and cared for, and how they were walking out the door with a very different mindset, and if they had experienced an emotional shift, we looked at each other and we were like, this is something.
Yeah. I was just looking back at that story, actually.
More work for us to do.
And when NBC4 did their first, because they came back and did a retrospective at our big in-person event that we had just in early May out in Reston, Virginia, the first story, the kind of tagline was that we were standing up an event series. And I think, oh my gosh, from that day until now, from, you know, 20-ish people in a room to over 700 members.
Wow.
Participating, engaging with our material. We have and offer virtual free events every week for folks. Monday is wellness focused. I facilitate a meditation. We may have some other guests coming in to do that too. Wednesday, Rebecca facilitates, and we bring in a subject matter expert to speak on whether it's kind of how to find the right therapist, to how to manage your finances, to how do you kind of navigate the professional waters of a new industry. We call it the Next Right Thing workshop. And it's just always really well attended, and it's wonderful to have it. And then Friday, we have these co-working sessions, these resume focused for those who are more action oriented in the moment. And I think the point is that we want to offer holistic support and meet our people, our well-fed family, wherever they are on that path forward. Because some people are just going to be like, I'm not ready to apply for a job. But what I really need is to calm my nervous system. Great, come on a Monday. Someone might say, okay, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I just need to kind of understand, what do other industries even look like? That could be a reason that they come to a similar kind of tailored workshop for Wednesday. And then on Friday, some people are like, let's go, right? I'm ready to turn this very federal kind of one-dimensional, perhaps, resume into something that's dynamic and speaks to the industry and changes its language to kind of meet the need of whatever that job or industry needs. We have something for everyone. We're looking for sponsorship to help us continue to give these resources. And we do have some amazing corporate partners, and we're looking to develop that even more because we know that we can do more when we have more support behind it. But it's been incredible.
The demand is only going to grow.
That's right. Totally.
You know, one of the things that we talk about on Channel 9 sometimes is how this feels very local, but in reality,
It's
it's
not.
not,
Oh,
right? This is facing people in Wyoming, in Minnesota, in California, and I think sometimes that gets left out of the story. Rebecca, you were
yeah.
telling me about some folks who are outside of the DC area. Could you tell us a little bit about the kinds of people who are part of the Wellfed family? What's their background? Where are they coming from? Is there one agency that's represented more than others? Just tell us a little bit about the group.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We have found in doing this work that, people from across agencies have been impacted.
Mm.
Right. And not, there's certainly a concentration of federal workers and contractors and implementing partners in the DMV area. But like you just highlighted, there are federal workers across this country. There are contractors across this country that support our nation and its people in a vast amount of ways. And one of the things that was really important to us from the beginning was, how do we make this accessible to people? So one is, we didn't want to charge, and we're navigating that, because if we're going to scale this work and continue to do this work, we have to figure out funding. But we wanted to make sure that it was free and accessible to folks. We also wanted to make sure that people could access it online. So in-person events are important. We want to hold that in-person space, but we wanted people to be able to access it from wherever they were. And so we started hosting our virtual offerings in the afternoon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. So regardless of the coast, right, you're on, or
1
anywhere
Eastern. People
in the
knew
middle
it.
of the country, 1 p.m. Eastern, regardless of where you live, that you would be able to access it. And we have had folks log on from all across the country in many different states, and we are agency agnostic, right? Which means that you are welcome no matter what agency, or whether you're a federal worker or you are a contractor or you are an implementing partner, you are welcome in this space. And we have found folks from across agencies. We have more than 30 federal agencies represented in our community. And
It's
these
just
are
growing.
folks who have separated from their agency. And I'll just, call out the obvious, like they were forced separations. Right? They felt forced to retire. They felt forced to take the DRP because they were told, they probably won't have a job, or they were riffed, or they're probationary, terminated employees like Drew and myself. And so we wanted to be as inclusive as possible. That was really important to us. And I think, our motto of "there's always a seat at the table for you" is, hopefully we have found that inclusive, welcoming message to folks that, listen, wherever you are, we are here to meet you in the moment. Right. And when you're like, whatever that looks like for you, whatever you're feeling, we have something for you. When you're ready, you can tap in, right? You can engage with us, and we're going to show up for you. And Nicole, what's really exciting is that, Drew referenced an event we hosted in Reston with an amazing corporate partner, Qualtrics. And we hosted an all-day event, an all-day retreat for folks. That we had wellness woven through it. We had workshops, we had professional development, we had resume experts come and just surround these folks. Yeah, we surrounded these folks with support that they needed, and for them to have a space that was focused on community, right? We've kind of been through something collectively. Well, from that community, some of our folks have already gone on and gotten jobs.
So
And
cool.
that feels really good we're like celebrating
hear
them.
that.
Like,
We
we're
love a
here, we're
success
rooting for
story.
each of you, whatever that looks like. If it's like, I'm getting a job, or I'm starting my own company, right? Or I'm starting my own nonprofit because I worked in the aid world and this is still so important. I want to continue driving this forward with my passion and my skill. We're here for them. We're here for you, is our message to the folks out there in the hurting federal community.
Yeah. And I think
What are those success stories? I'm sorry, Drew. What are those success stories? Like, give us some. Are people finding jobs in local government? Are they all transitioning to the private sector? What's the
I think we have
entrepreneurial angle?
examples, a lot of different examples. The one I want to call out was actually someone that we had who was a former colleague of ours. She was working for the government, experienced the layoffs, and ended up pivoting into a totally different industry, doing completely different work. And I think it was, Rebecca, it was after she spoke to you, because her interest was in learning and development. She's like, I didn't come from a learning and development background, but this is really interesting to me. I'm seeing these jobs pop up that are out of the realm of what I'm used to. And what was your advice to her? What did you say to her?
Yeah, this is somebody who she's a veteran.
Yeah.
right? So she's already served our country once, actually in many ways. And then she was also a federal worker who worked at FEMA and was laid off. And this job opportunity arose. She said to me, I was coaching her through it. She said, I'm really interested in the learning and development field, the field that you're in. And this job opportunity arose to work at a tire company. And she was like, you know what? Should I do this? Like, they offered me a job. And I was like, absolutely, take the job, because even 3 months on your resume working in this field, what you're going to be able to do and prove, and how you're going to be able to transform that department, it's going to speak volumes, right? Get that experience, get it on your resume. She accepted the job, and she's been working there for a number of months, and she's hiring people now, and she's really thriving.
I love that.
We had
How did
another,
she find that job?
I believe that she found it through LinkedIn.
Okay. I love to hear a LinkedIn success story. I think you hear more
mechanism for all the things.
Yeah, there's more horror stories that you hear about LinkedIn, or you name your platform.
They exist everywhere. But I think the piece of that was so important, and we had this amazing woman on our panel at our event in Reston that was called A Taste of Transformation, Successful Stories of Career Pivots. And we had people coming from all different kinds of industries, coaches and entrepreneurs, corporate to federal, HR experts, all of those individuals talking about, yes, it is scary. Yes, it is hard. Yes, you have to make a case. Do it. Just do it. What's the harm? If someone sees in them,
take the risk,
potential that was seen in us coming from out of the federal space to come into a new arena and bring innovation and freshness and ideas and connection, like, who's to say someone isn't going to see that in them? And if someone doesn't, if there's a hiring individual who doesn't quite understand the landscape of these immensely talented people who are now out of work, and Rebecca always says, we need these people back at work. We need their talent. We need their drive. We need their passion. We need their transferable expertise, because there is always a case to be made for smart, talented people to do work in a variety of different areas. If somebody can look at a federal employee and say, I see what's in you and I know what you're capable of, come and join us. That's amazing. And if they don't, that's a good litmus test of it being the culture that you actually want.
So do you see Wellfed's ultimate goal as putting yourselves out of business because this isn't a problem anymore?
No.
You know what? That's a great question.
That is a good question.
We've thought a lot about that. And I think from the very beginning, Drew and I were really intentional about thinking, like, okay, what's here and now, right? What's the demand now? How can we serve this community? And what does this look like in 5 years, right? So if we start an organization that's just dedicated to this moment, how do we evolve over time? And I think we see ourselves, with this expertise supporting this specific community, but we did this both in the private sector, and we also have done it in the public sector. And now we're doing this for this deeply affected community. We are going to continue to do this work. We're going to continue to evolve. And when it comes to employee engagement, wellness, and learning and development, we are your girls, right? Wellfed we're working on making a name for ourselves in this space. We bring this expertise. And, one thing that never changes, Nicole, is change, right? There will always be a need for change management, for strategic change, and navigating those changes. And I mean, this experience aside, we have a lot of expertise we bring to this space, but the people we've gotten connected with, right? The relationships. And you talked about, like, I don't even know why I was holding those town halls because you cared. I think it's the care and the compassion. It's driving us. It's connecting us with other people in our community. It's connecting us with people outside of our network that we're like, you weren't even on my radar. But people who are reaching out because they want to do the right thing, because they want to support, and they want to get these group of incredible folks with their expertise, their knowledge. These are folks who have made sure that our food is safe to eat, that we have clean drinking water. They're the folks who show up when there are weather emergencies and when there are hurricanes, and they show up in the aftermath. And these are folks who are boots on the ground. We need all of them back to work. And I think our experiencing guiding them through this process, showing up for them, well, I think that's translatable. And I think we're going to be around for a while.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think something that we cared about in creating this company is that it's important to feed and nourish the needs of fired folks and tired folks, but it's also important to nourish and feed the needs of people who are in various industries, actively loving their jobs, working hard, and figuring it out. I mean, I think there is a place for this kind of, a curated retreat for an internal team where a boss or manager feels like, I want to take care of my people. I want to develop my people because I want them to stay. I understand the power of retention. And what that requires is an investment in them in order for them to then turn and invest in this work. And I think that's one of the places where we think there is immense need. It doesn't have to be, a mass firing. It can just be someone who understands that care for your team and giving a damn about your team is going to manifest positive outcomes.
We could do an entire episode on that topic unto itself, because I think, the other thing everywhere right now is the conversation about the flipping of sentiment around workers, generally speaking. So we're not going to get into it today, but I'm going to have you guys back because I think that there is a lot to unpack there. And I think as leaders need to do better. And not only the leaders need to do better, but the people who are the leaders of leaders need to appreciate that.
Yes,
because
those people need it too.
That drives the bottom line. Anyway, I'm not going to get on my soapbox about this because I feel passionately about it. I want to end with how we can support Wellfed. So I've heard sponsorships. I've heard Qualtrics stepping up. Love that. Good CRM and a good customer experience platform. I love it. But tell us, what can we do to be helpful for the two of you?
What an amazing question. Thank you for asking. We are looking for corporate partners. So what that means is we're looking for folks who will be a part of our sponsorship team and will donate to sponsor our online events, to host in-office, in-person retreats in their various offices and buildings. Monetary support is enormous, obviously. These kinds of things require the least sexy operational necessities that we need funding for, and also to kind of create these really magical in-person experiences and to keep that virtual schedule going. So it's talent, subject matter expertise, it's time, people giving us the opportunity to connect with them, discover opportunities for partnership, and it is treasure. It's totally, we live in America, and unfortunately we can't do much without that kind of backing financially. So we would love for folks to get in touch with us. We would love to have conversations with them to understand what they might want to do. We have some upcoming partnerships with amazing restaurants in the area who are we're going to create something called the Wellfed Dining Club and have restaurants kind of host events where they can give a portion of whatever famous dish they have on their menu back to Wellfed, which is incredible. So we've seen amazing and creative contributions from the hyper-local industry, which I think is huge. And we want to take our retreats across the country. We know that there are major cities, more than we can count on two hands, that need this community, that need this help. And we want to emphasize the importance of bringing those hyper-local businesses together to elevate and amplify these really deserving people.
Well, he's not here to say no, but my co-host, Arun, is one of the best meditative leaders you will ever have. So I'm just going to go ahead and offer him up. He's not here, so he can absolutely help you on those Mondays, because I think that is so important. I love the idea that you're coming off the weekend and most of us are conditioned to go do the thing. And it can be really, really disorienting to not have that. So Arun is up. You sign him up. Obviously, you have my support in whatever ways that we can do, spreading the word.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing this platform and helping us get the word out about Wellfed.
All right. So I'm hearing, in terms of needs, sponsorship, partnership, giving your time, your treasure, your support, generally speaking. But how do people find out about it?
Great question. So you can find us. Our website is wearewellfed.com. And if there's anyone interested in reaching out to us about how they can share their time, their treasure, they can sponsor, they can partner with us in some way, you can reach out to The Dish at wearewellfed.
That's cute. We're really working
We love the wordplay.
The food. I'm starving now. This is perfect time for lunch. What a note to end on. It was interesting. I went to the World Happiness Report and you mentioned about food, and that is a leading indicator for happiness. And when we share meals together and when we sit down and break bread, it means something. The relationships are deeper.
The table is real stuff. It's so true.
Yeah. Well, I am just so incredibly impressed with the two of you for what you have done, the gifts that you are giving to others. And I also hope and I assume that it's also feeding your souls as well.
Oh, gosh.
I'm so Thank you for joining me so much. I'm so excited to support you. I will see you in DC. And thanks again, always to our listeners, because there's a lot going on in the world today and there's a lot of podcasts. So we're grateful for all of you. We'll see you
Thanks,
next
Nicole.
time. Good to see you guys. Bye.
Thanks.